Okay, just so you know, Matt Ritchie is gonna do a presentation up there too at some point.
Just arrived.
Yes, he told me he's coming.
Do we need
Garrett,
more
do you mind
seats?
just
Do we have
flipping
another
through
one
your-
more in here?
Will you hand me those two or not?
Yes.
Oh,
He doesn't have a scanner.
The two
for
closest to
the-
you.
Please, one in here, I think. And the other one. Sorry.
Right
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Just
This one? Yeah.
I've never actually tried, so I'm like, didn't think so.
there's a good sermon illustration there. Glad the door's closed. Sometimes there's presented.
Terrible. This place is locked forever.
That's what I'm saying, so that's a shame, but we got it, it's different. You have access to it. Thank you, Papa. Okay, just quick little friendly reminder. I take your evaluations and I do stuff with them as soon as I can. So I've already talked to Luke about your production and shortly hear of it.
you.
So when you fill these out in a timely manner, we get timely things accomplished. So please continue to make a priority to fill these out right away. I love to celebrate with you, like what went well at your campus, and I love to help troubleshoot and take obstacles out of your way to lead with success. So I like not being able to say evals, please. And if you're a campus worship leader and someone's filling in for you, on their to-do list is, hey, as soon as you wrap up the weekend, please give them the link, make sure they have it, because I want to hear from their perspective as well. So that's just a housekeeping note on that. Just reading through the evals from this past weekend, which I want you to be thinking about a 2 to 3 minute highlight recap from camp to share with us. Going into next year in camp, we need to rethink Rogo leaders leading the week after camp, if they're at camp. Camp is one of the few things that we have to just learn to adapt to and flex with in terms of how it affects our teams. I think going acoustic is like was a great thing to do. I was at 2 campuses and it sounded great. It just was worshipful, it was great, it was so good. Acoustic weekends also give us a great chance to hear people sing. And it's a reminder to me that we need to go off mic more on weekends that are not acoustic. So you need to take more steps back from the mic on songs that they know. Don't do it on songs that they don't. Because you're like, everyone hates me. It's not that. It's just great things isn't locked in yet. But on Reckless Love, man, you get Reckless Love started and go to the bathroom. I mean, they're just gonna go. Okay? So it was a great reminder to me being at both Woodcrest and Moreno Valley, where the room there just really elevates the sound of people singing.
So good.
Just take more steps back during non-acoustic sets. Give them a housekeeping tip, give a prompt before you step off mic. Don't just go off mic, because then they're like, did their mic break? Did they forget the words? Like, but say, hey, Kelly Tillery did a beautiful job with this. Just your voices. I just want to hear you guys sing. Sing, she, and then she stepped away. So that's just a reminder to kind of look through your set for this weekend, make some pauses in there so that you can really hear people sing, and coach your band. Hey, when I have them just sing, let's all pull it back a little bit. Have your production lead in the know, make those communication notes, but just really kind of step back. But going forward, with the adjustments that we did make, it was rough in some places having people who've been at camp all week step in to lead, especially like East Valley. That was a lot for Stephanie. I feel like that was a lot for her to be a counselor all week, get done Friday, and hop in on a Saturday. And then
Princess was on too.
she asked Princess off because Princess was just not good. You got to think about their voices. I mean, especially Princess, her voice. Vivi was losing her voice all day Sunday trying to launch middle school. I think we just have to be realistic with expectations on people and Rogo leaders are going to be very hesitant to say no, because they understand that this is a part of their growth process as like interns. So we need to be doing that troubleshooting for them and with them. So it's just a note to kind of tuck in there and move. Sunday night Palm, that's not an issue. They got done Friday, they have Saturday, most of the day Sunday. But hopping in for a 5-service weekend is that's a real challenge. So just to kind of tuck that away, know for next year. Having said that, I got to be at camp Tuesday night, and I did a little bragging on Slack already. But we're gonna give it up for Taylor Ridge right now. First I'm celebrating Taylor. I'm gonna go back to your youth worship night.
Yes.
So Addison's on Planning Center, which is a big deal for her. She's like, I got an email from Pablo today about a new song. I'm like, you're in the know, babe.
Oh my gosh.
She's
Dude, they're awesome.
no, there's so many updates. Tim and Danielle are like, today Addie said, like, they're my recipients, because it's always bountiful. It's always like goodness. But I have my own email address set up with her on Planning Center because she's not on email all the time. But Taylor, his set for the youth worship night was up almost a month in advance, probably a month in advance, because he knew he had young worship leaders. He checked in.
Oh,
Okay,
everybody
everyone's
was
giving
Christina, okay.
There you go, Christine. There's Christine. He checked in with his team so regularly and was encouraging them to be on the set, to pay attention to the notes, and then I didn't want him to feel like I was there to evaluate his rehearsal. I was just there because my parents were here and they wanted to see Addie sing since they took off the next day. But he led a really effective rehearsal. He went through everything. Went through one song twice because I was like, can you run that again? Because Addie's mic wasn't on. My parents are kind of here to see that, so sorry for that. But then what he did at the end, and some of you may do this already, but I thought it was, I don't do this when I'm leading rehearsal, and now I'm going to, was after he ran through his entire set, he ended the rehearsal just going through transitions from one song to the next. So he didn't run the whole song, so it was just awesome. We're just going to run the end of this song into this song. And you guys know that transitions are where it gets bumpy. People get lost. Click, all of those things. So he just went and dialed all of that in. So I thought it was really, really well done. And I just can't, my Instagram story just could not highlight what the worship experience at camp was. I had to almost remove myself from that experience going into teaching because I could see Elijah, who's not a worshiper, but he was at camp. And I was like zooming in with my camera, but like, okay, there's his face. He's not the jump up, never stop guy. That's not Elijah. He's clearly takes after his dad. But he was so engaged, and I really think that you were purposeful in the sets that you planned. And then I spoke on grace, and for you to come in with broken vessels like I asked you to was just an incredible moment across the room. But I would love you just to share a couple highlights from you, the experience leading the team. I know that when I came up to you, Eric, it's kind of a bumpy day, so it didn't go perfect, but the execution was really, really well done. So I just love to hear a couple of your thoughts.
Yeah, so I'd say overall, like the coolest part or like my biggest highlight from the week was, and we have pictures of it, is just getting to like the part in Build My Life where, I will build my life, and I will put my trust, and just seeing every student, like not a hand in the room not raised, like not a single student not singing. Like me and my team, like we even talked about it afterwards. Other people brought it up there, like we were looking for like that one person that wasn't singing, and like we couldn't find it. And yeah, just the response to worship was incredible. And then of course I was watching for Eli because I know. We've talked a little bit about like how he is during worship and stuff, and yeah, he was back there raising his hands and singing, and it was just so cool to see students that I didn't think or know would have that kind of response during worship, and to see them like move that way, and like the Holy Spirit like working in their hearts and like seeing change, just so cool, because I've been going from Wednesday to Wednesday, youth night to youth night for probably a year now-ish, off and on, and just seeing like the change from like what it was the first couple times to now, it's just incredible. Like God is moving in our youth and in their hearts, and it's just so cool. My team was really good, so that was probably the second highlight. Incredible team. I mean, I picked each and every one of them because they're just awesome, and their hearts are in the right place, and they want to serve, and they don't care if they're going to lose their voice, and a lot of them even said yes to Sunday and stuff afterwards, and I'm just like, you guys are crazy because I took the Sunday off, which is great. But my team executed so well, and one of the things that I wanted them to be purposeful about and that we talked about was like, when we're done with worship, like we spend time with the kids, we play the games with them, we eat with them, because so much of it is like having this relationship with them and having this buy-in with them is just going to allow us to lead them so much more. And they like totally killed that, so that's cool. But overall, just like incredible week. Production was like
Spot on.
freaking.
Yep.
I could
As soon as
not.
I saw David Connor there, I was like, and all shall be well.
Yes.
Yeah,
My
David's.
slides and all shall be well.
Yeah. So it was just cool. We set up. I'm sure most of you guys have seen. Like we set up a stage and like a thing out on the
Sweet.
out of the yard. Called it Camp Cella, but it was super cool. And it was just like the level of excellence that we had was like unlike I'd ever been a part of for camp, especially compared to last year. And it just showed in like the response. And it's like that level of excellence is so worth it to get every ounce of like response and to get every student with their hands raised, like the exhaustion, the hardship on production. Like worship had to help them set up the stage and like for like 3 hours before we played our set, but like every single thing was worth it.
Yeah.
to have the week we did, so it's cool.
The payoff for preparation is
Yeah.
always worth it.
Yep.
Like, and there's no substitute for it. You can't go, well, instead of preparing, there's no like handoff. It's just, we have to prepare, we have to do this with all the sweat and guts that go into this, and the payoff is going to be a worship experience that's void of distraction. And it's void of distraction means people are able to engage with God because Taylor's band was on point, because the leads were ironed out, because all of the slides were taken, like all of those things make for a distraction-free environment, and that's why we stress preparation as much as we do, because that is the payoff. It's not, oh yeah, we killed it and everything sounded great. Well, good, that's awesome, but the end result was these kids were worshiping, these kids were engaging with God, kids who normally don't, kids who normally kind of stand with their hands in their pockets. So here's what's funny. I don't cheer Elijah's stuff a lot of times because he's way more private, but we grabbed him right after camp and we went to have lunch, and like he'll decompress so much better with me and Adam, not Addie and Eddie. Addie being like, I saw you had sunburn. You didn't have someone put it on your back like Mom told you to. Like that's her approach to things. But he goes, I said, I'm just curious. I was like, I just love seeing you worship. I love seeing you engage so freely. So he goes, yeah. He goes, I feel like I worship better when you and Dad aren't around. I was like, what? But it was a no judgment zone because he was just being real. And I said, I just want to challenge you to meet with God whenever the opportunity is given, no matter who's around. Like, to just take advantage of the opportunity that someone's saying, I'm inviting you into worship, and it's here, it's outside, it's at camp, it's at church, it's in the cage, it's wherever it is, and just to accept that invitation. And he goes, okay, cool. I was like, okay, we're done. Moving on. We don't sit there. We keep going. Enjoy your burger. Thank you for that conversation. It was really well done. So I'm really celebrating your growth as a leader over the last year. How your team is responding to you because of the way that you're leading them. And so that's a huge win for you personally. That they respond to your leadership when you're actually leading. So good job for that. Moving on to some tactical, logistical goodness. Matt Ritchie is going to help us get better today with some communication standardization information. And let's just give it up because we're going to put a slide presentation together the way that Matt Ritchie does. He sends it to me and it's full of colors, and that makes me pay attention. So he knows how.
Are we going here?
Yes, so we're going to just.
We can squeeze.
Come sit over there.
What we do.
That was a really great response for the word standardization, communication,
Thank you guys.
That made me feel really good going
Yeah.
into this.
Matt, just give us a little bit of the background of the why.
So initially, I mean, a lot of credit for this
even happening goes to Danielle when a few of us were in a meeting talking about how can we better onboard new staff members and what does that include, and a lot of that is making sure people are on the right Slack channels. Sorry.
Steve's
So we're not
very
go-
good
so-
Monday, I don't know where
So we're
that
not
is.
going like months without people getting the right communication. And then Danielle was like, "Have we like nailed down like how we use Slack and why we do what we do?" And we kind of talked about that casually for a while. And we're like, "I think I could pull that together." And then
And you
the afternoon of some quick research and putting some stuff together, and
voila.
here we are. So yeah, so that's the goal, is to have us all on the same page as far as what we're trying to do with all our different channels of communication, to simplify it as much as possible, but also just to clarify. And just so you guys know, like, even though this is all put together, this is like version 1 in my mind. As we use it, we're going to figure out what works and what doesn't, if stuff needs to change. And also, I'm sure we're going to think of things as we go that probably aren't included in this because it's not completely conclusive and extensive, or whatever appropriate term to use for that. So communication channels and etiquette. The goal is more efficient and effective communication collaboration. Got all those in one. I knew you.
Oh, we just need to take a moment so I can just take all that in, those words that mean so much to me.
Because we, with communication as like a core value of our team and what we do, if that in and of itself isn't efficient and effective, that's going to affect everything else. And so,
Yes, it will.
and it does.
Where are stickers? Not what you
These transitions are just making me so
Dude, that's
happy.
all.
Everything
That's
is
all
so-
Apple.
everything is a
I can't take credit for
celebration right now.
magic move or whatever they call it.
The
Whatever the
communication
thing
is
is. So, but the biggest problem we run into, right, is so many channels available, just in Slack, not even including all the other availability of other kinds of communication. How do we use it? How are we not getting important information on text, talking about lunch on Slack, doing whatever in person? Like, it all kind of gets jumbled, and so how can we kind of do that? And sometimes I just think, like, there's times where it'd be like,
Oh my god.
hey guys, I found this really funny video. And like, hey, can you pray for the team member? Hey, what are we getting for lunch? It's like all in a row. Like, whoa, hold on. And so I just think about like the need for it. I think of community and that thing. Just wanted to eat pizza. So obviously our main channels, we have text messaging, Slack messaging, emails, and that's supposed to be in-person conversation.
I got it.
Cool.
I knew exactly what that was.
I had two of those facing each other one time, and it was just all really weird. Very intimate. Shouting at each other. I had two of those together, it just didn't work. So I'll go through all of this, and then we'll have kind of like an overview at the end. So, and also all of this is in a document on our policies and procedures folder on our team drive. So accessibility at all times.
Where's tissues? I could.
So text messages, primarily used for non-work related personal or informal interactions. If it doesn't have to do with work, go here. But if you need to use text messaging for work related stuff, it needs to be both, keyword both, urgent and outside of normal work hours. So if it's like a Friday night and something comes up and we need to change something for service, posting it on Slack, there's a good chance a lot of people are going to miss that. Email, same kind of thing. You can't have it in person because we're not all here. And so think like sending a text message out. If I get a text message, like for today to do this, Melody text messaged me last night. It was a great use of appropriate communication channels. She texted me to ask, like, hey, I'd love to have you present on that tomorrow. Like that, if she would have done Slack, I probably wouldn't have seen it till this morning, like all that kind of stuff. So both urgent and outside of normal work hours. So then Slack is obviously where we reside, probably some of, like I'd say the most. And so this is going to be a little more to make our way through. But primarily used when a quick answer to something simple is needed. If it's just a quick, again, work related, I just need an answer to this, like, hey, can you do this? Hey, can we make this switch? Anything like that, that's when Slack is our best option. Also, when we want to share and collaborate in real time, collaborating on email is possible, collaborating in person is awesome, but Slack really shines when you want to collaborate on an idea or something like in real time. We're all on Slack in a group message or whatever. That's really one of the best ways to use that as well. And similar to quick answer, but it serves saying again, when an immediate response is needed during work hours. So what you don't want to use it for is non-urgent requests for action. So hey, I need you to do this, but it's like next week we'll need to do this, or hey, in this project the next step is this. That's non-urgent requests, and so what can happen, we've seen again our Slack channels kind of get jumbled. Where's information being held? Where did I have that conversation? What's the next step? And it's just helping to clear that out a little bit and say like, hey, if it's something that can be taken care of like right then and there, Slack is our best option. If it's not, probably not the best option. You've probably seen some changes happen with Slack channels. Hopefully you've noticed that there are quite a few less. I winnowed those down to I think like 7, which still seems like a lot, but it's a lot better than what it was. And now we have a clear direction for each of these two. So worship, WL General, all network, campus, and volunteer worship leaders. So basically everybody. It's our all inclusive general channel.
Rogo is on that as well, Christina? Okay. Rogo worship leaders are on worship leader general too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So all volunteer worship leaders, including, that includes, what's it called? Bullpen and Rogo.
So just a quick question about that. We have our next bullpen on the 29th. So what's the most efficient way? Is that for you to notify him of here's who's?
Yeah, we talked about that last week. We're gonna wait till after the 29th so that they're not getting all these requests before. So I'll give a list of names.
Well, I was actually going to take that a step further. I think we should wait until they actually co-lead.
Okay.
So they're trained and then they co-lead and we observe and we go, yes, they are definitely in the right place. Or
And it's easy to invite someone to a Slack channel, and Amber and I both have the ability to do that.
okay, great.
So there's options there. And then also self-explanatory WL staff, that's staff only, so that kind of takes it from everybody down to staff only. And then we have WL campus, which is campus worship leaders only, so that's like a subset of that. And so that's usually primarily going to be scheduling, like kind of questions and little things. That's usually what we use that for. Because you'll see it on the doc, but I didn't put it on here because I couldn't figure out a good way to make it look that way. But a bracket over all 3 of these saying no weekend service or programming information. Again, just thinking clarity and stuff, like we want to have those conversations, but we want to have it in a spot where if someone needs to like, what did we say about that, or what was the question, that is going to specifically be for the weekend programming channel, not in our, hey everybody, like the, when we say general, it's really general, so that way weekend programming, it's like the set's ready, we're doing this new song, whatever, those kinds of weekend programming specific. So it's information and questions, it's a 2-way thing, so it's not just going to be announcements, but it's also for questions, primarily probably directed at like Melody, Danielle, Pablo.
Are the volunteer worship leaders also on weekend programming?
Yes, that's another one where everybody's on it. And also, I know I made a note already on the campus worship leader channel. I did add Anthony Flores onto that because he's filling that role as part of this project, so he'll be included on, because we've missed some stuff there as well, like communicating things for San Bernardino. Excuse me. Rogo Worship took the year off of the name of the channel because we'll just keep that as an ongoing channel and cycle out whoever the current Rogo leaders are. And again, that's to and with the current Rogo leaders. That's another, again, specifically, like if something needs to be communicated to that whole group, that's the channel for it.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So the only staff who are on that channel, Melody, myself, you, and Morgan. So
It's up to you guys and what you think would be
yeah,
best.
I would say if there's something that you guys want to, I don't know if there would ever be a time where somebody randomly would need to address the whole Rogo cohort. That could probably run through. Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily speak to like all of us are on there and using it. It's just whoever's on there, that's the set purpose of the channel. And then production, just like we've been using it, that's announcements and info from production staff primarily, but also it can be questions about tech or tech dependent elements. So I know Penny's asked questions about like, hey, is the like if a verse needs to be on the screen, or we're doing this creative element and working out details of that. If it's something, again, that's kind of team-wide and affects all of us. Otherwise, DMs are great between you and your production lead. Because again, we just want to keep these as clear as possible.
We won't all be on that one, right?
I think everyone's on here.
Oh.
And that's the primary one. What it's mostly been used for is when like Isaiah or Kelly or Penny or whoever needs to communicate something to all of us from production.
Is anybody besides Tim not on that channel?
I'm not on that one.
Krista?
Okay.
Tim?
I'll just go through and make sure the whole team's on it.
Okay.
Do Rogo leaders need to be on that as well, like Rogo bullpen? Or would that?
I don't think so.
That would go more towards the weekend experience.
Yeah, I think if it goes to weekend programming, because their role usually is weekend specific and not kind of overarching like ours. So in the last two, we're gonna change over the overall general channel, kind of like the all staff channel on the Sandals staff Slack. So it's announcement only, posts from approved leaders. So and that's like team wide, completely broad general, not having to do with specific worship leading, not having to do with specific weekend programming. I would imagine this is primarily going to be things like events that we're holding that are coming up and stuff like that. Because then that really gets out to all the volunteers, especially that are on that Slack channel, to be able to get the word out. And then lastly, random is everything else. This can kind of be honestly a substitute for text messaging if you want. Kind of the random like jokes and funny things you've seen around. I don't know. But you can go into your settings and mute that channel or turn off notifications for it if you don't want any of those. Which I would recommend if that's, I don't really care. I don't have it set to remind me everything something gets posted on random, but it's kind of fun sometimes to look at it. And speaking of that, what we can go over is when you look at your Slack channel, team, I think it's a team technically, whatever their term is, if there's a drop-down arrow next to the name of the Slack they're using, so Sandals Worship, there's a little drop-down arrow. You either tap on that or click on it if you're on your computer. Choose Preferences, and the first thing that comes up whenever you choose Preferences is all of your notification settings. And what you want to look for is direct messages, mentions, and keywords only. If you have frustration with getting all of these notifications all the time for everything, that means you don't have this setting for your notifications. This is really helpful. You have one where you get none, you have some where you get all. This is what I found has been a really comfortable medium for me. Because again, you'll get notifications if someone DMs you directly, if someone mentions you in another channel, and then what you can do is you can set keywords. So for a while, I think I had like rehearsal, set list, band, and lunch as like keywords. If you want to like, hey, someone said something about lunch, I want to know. And that's up to your discretion of whatever your keywords you think need to be, because then that notifies it what do I actually need to send you notifications on. Because otherwise, what I found most helpful, both in Slack and email and other forms of communication, is to have less notifications and just set times where I'm checking Slack or email. And that's my time to go in, check, and then close it out, so I'm not constantly coming back every 5 minutes. So set those notifications. In that same, you scroll down there, that same page, there's a do not disturb time frame that you can set. So say like 5:30 till 9 a.m. or you know what I mean, like whatever you want to set, it'll automatically snooze all notifications for you. So if you don't like getting notifications at like 9 or 10 o'clock when Christina's trying to get a hold of you.
I know you're on snooze, so I know you're not going to look at it.
No, I know, it's fine with me.
Warning.
It's fine with me. I doesn't bother me at all. No, but that's a helpful thing that sets it. And again, you're setting these things in so you don't have to have all the self-control in the moment, but it's just kind of setting parameters that you don't even need to think about it. And then the other thing is when you need to, especially I'm thinking if we're on like worship leader staff or worship leader general, I'm guessing most of the time if it's like something pertinent and you want everybody on there to see it soon and not like at their discretion, you want to do @channel, which will send a notification for everybody on that channel. Or if you want to like notify someone of a conversation in a channel and be like, hey Eddie, like what do you think about this? I could say that just by typing his name and maybe he'll eventually see it, but really what's going to be most helpful is if you tag him and you do the @ sign and then whatever their name or handle is on there. That's pretty key, especially if you want something to be like visible, like again, an immediate response, like, to quickly collaborate on something, to get a quick request for action, you know, that's urgent. Like usually that's going to be the tool you want for Slack.
To your point, when we change our parameters about notifications to mentions and whichever is it. The only way that will be notified is if there's a mention,
Yeah.
aka like the @ channel.
Like it'll still show up as like
It'll
a
show
little
up,
dot
yeah.
or whatever once you pull it up, but the way for your computer or your phone to go like, hey,
Yes.
is to tag someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like I mean by necessity of life being crazy, like I just don't like once I leave like Slack I don't touch it. And so if it's like something important, that's when we go to like text message or like tagging someone like that. Being like, oh okay, I'll check that real quick. Yeah, so it helps it to be a lot more efficient and effective for sure. So that's Slack.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Did you cover the weekend experience channel? So that's not on the Sandals Worship, but that's on the Sandals Church, and I think we're all on that. That's like where Dan Zimbardi's on, and
Yeah, we're all on there. I was just going over specifically our team's
We don't really
Slack.
interact.
I was gonna
on
say,
that.
there's been some audibles called on that channel. Is that channel now
Well,
kind of?
So
For
no,
anything-
that's it. But everyone's on that channel too.
Anything for like the weekend experience, like that's changes made to us, like one of us will communicate that on weekend programming. That's really Penny communicating out to like
Campus
Or-
pastors.
everybody, and more so like, hey, we're using this service for video rather than this service.
And she's
Things
really
that
good
are-
about tagging the
Yeah.
channel or tagging
Yeah.
people as well. So if you have the same notification setting, even on the Sandals staff Slack, we'll get you the same thing. When she says @ channel, here's the details for the weekend, like that should pop up for everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's not one that we're necessarily using as far
You're
as
not
interacting.
right.
And
We're
you've
not,
already
we're
got
not
all
really
that
communicating a lot, we're receiving information that
So
way.
any last minute changes or updates will always be put on the weekend programming channel if there's
Danielle moves those over.
Yeah,
If
I was gonna say,
whatever
yeah,
plan
as long as someone like catches those and pulls them
Yeah.
over for sure. And Penny's really great about communicating those out, tagging the right people and stuff too. But yeah, and that's also on the list when we bring someone on the team, like that's included as like making sure they have
Yeah.
access to it and they're seeing
And
that
this is
channel.
why that channel and moving it over is so important, and that when you're leading on the weekend, you're in the know. Because if we have to make a call like cutting a song, so PMAC goes 48, 49 minutes, and it's a community weekend. We don't have, and the call, like, we go, okay, we gotta shave 5 minutes. It's gonna come through the weekend experience channel that we're cutting a song, cause that's gonna go up to campus pastors, hosts, campus worship leaders. Then Danielle's gonna move that over to weekend programming, but that's why you need to have your Slack notifications set to some sort of alert on the weekends when you're leading, because that's how you're gonna get that information. No one's gonna send you an individual text and say, make sure you cut another in the fire. Like, that's not gonna come that way, it's only gonna come through Slack.
Yeah, and there's shoot, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say that's like a great example of like posting on a channel, saying @ channel, here's the information to tag
Yep.
everybody if you're tagging on that. But also you can set channel specific notifications too. If you really want to get specific, you can say I never want to miss a notification on Weekend Experience channel. You can totally do that.
Yeah.
You want to I never want to miss a notification on random. You can also do that. So you can go through that, and again, that's under you click on or tap on the name of the Slack that you're on. There should be a menu drops down, preferences, notifications, and if you need help finding that, come and find me, and I'll help you.
Yes. Remember, she's
Cool.
gonna set up a tutorial station.
Yeah, I'll have the one minute. And
That's why he has to take off.
he knew. So that's Slack. So then email. That can kind of feel like
This is
Crazy,
over my inbox
and that's
any
what we don't
moment
want.
of any week ever.
Check that too.
I love animated GIFs. I'm telling you right now, if I'm in a group message, that's always my first preferred method of replying to anything is just in animated GIFs instead of words. So just know to expect that from me. So email is, so first is use when you need to include someone outside of our team or outside of the organization. Pretty self-explanatory. You're not gonna email someone like a musician from another church or someone in Fenton Ministries and add them to our Slack channels and stuff, right? Email is probably gonna make the most sense. Something longer and with more detail. Things, because we use the wonderful free version of Slack, after a certain amount of time or a certain amount of space, things disappear. So, so if you love sending like multiple paragraph Slack messages,
Stop.
that's great.
Wait.
My guess is that either one needs to be documented and held on to refer to later, or two isn't an urgent request for action usually. And so email is the place to go. If we have a list of like Melody sent out an email saying, hey guys, when I'm back in a couple weeks, these projects, we're gonna check in on these 3 things. Like that's a great place because I know I have that to go back to. I don't need to remember all of that right now. There's more detail, there's more people involved. That's gonna be the best way to take care of those things. And again, just kind of like the flip of Slack. Think through like, we'll go through this in a minute, but think through like, is it urgent? Is a key question for you. Like, do I need urgent response to this? And if not, email is a great place because then again, if it's not urgent, that means we probably need to be able to have a place to hold on to it that it's not gonna disappear at any given moment. And then also stuff that's important and you want to underscore its importance. Again, Slack is a little slightly more like casual than email, and so if it's super important, maybe that's not the best place for it. And again, instant quick chat, getting an email with like the subject line as like the content of the email or like a couple of words, that's just, again, like think of that picture of like an inbox just being bogged down. Like that's what Slack and other things are used for, or even, hey, can we talk real quick is great. So usually it's like I don't even respond to those ones. I'll just come find you so we can talk. Unless you're Dan Zabadi, because I will like just the subject line and be like, I will reply right away, sir. And again, we're speaking in like ideals and what we want to get to. There's obviously a grace period for like figuring all this out and getting used to new rhythms and stuff. Whoop, that was jittery. So last one, in person. Obviously, like more sensitive things. Like think between Slack, email, and in person. Maybe it's a weird way to think about it. I think, do I want a paper trail of this? Sometimes I really do. Like I want to document the conversation and make sure I'm tracking. There's other things I'm like, I don't need someone to find like what we just needed to discuss.
Yeah.
Not like in an inappropriate way, but just as we minister to people, as we interact with people, going through stuff, like it's not always going to be like, hey, here's this email that feels super, formal and cold. Usually when you need to talk through complicated projects and subjects where people are likely to get confused. So if I'm working on a project with Taryn, I want to show an update to Melody and Christina. I'm going to sit down with them and show them the spreadsheet and not just share it and be like, here you go, what do you think? Because there's a lot involved in there. I even need to like sit down with Taryn and be like, okay, so explain to me okay, you did all that stuff, but what does it look like and what are we doing? That's when you need in person. Like, sure, it's more efficient in cases like that maybe to do an email or just share a Google Doc, but it might not be as effective in that case. And so you want to make sure that you're tracking in person is the way to go. Sometimes Slack and email are just dragging on without clear next steps or consensus. And obviously we don't wait for consensus in the way we lead stuff, but if everyone's just like not on board, not tracking, like it's okay. Like maybe you just need to like, let's meet together on the deck real quick, talk through this and make sure we're all clear on what's happening. Like once you get to like 5 emails back and forth, maybe you should just talk. Usually you need buy-in through storytelling. Actually, in my research, I was like found this on like a business website. Like that's actually really key because I think Melody does that a lot. Obviously, like you're talking to our team and our department and stuff. Like you want to talk through things that you're like, I want buy-in in a different way than like I can just get the information out. So that's in person. Before we do an overview and a wonderful flowchart of how to make your way through deciding what to use.
It's the best part. Can't wait to get
Any
to it.
questions on that? Pretty clear.
It's very clear.
So when communicating, what we want to get to is to ask ourselves these things. Is it work related? And if the answer is no,
This is so good, guys. Pay attention.
if it's not work related, just don't even go to anything else. Just go straight. Do not press go. Do not collect $200. Just go straight to text message. That was a Monopoly reference. Sorry, I feel old. It's like, well, I feel old. But maybe no one references that anymore. My mom used to always say it. Maybe that's my first clue. But is it work related? The next, is it urgent? Whoops, I just went back. So we'll go through that again. You get to see
Recap.
computers.
It's so good, you just want to shout it again.
So in conclusion, so if it's urgent, then is it outside of normal work hours? Because if it is, let's go ahead and go text message still.
Ooh.
You should
If
test
it's not,
it before you
So
show it.
good, Matt.
so now if you go back to is it urgent, and if the answer is no, let's say can it be answered immediately? Is it a quick answer from someone? And if it is, then hey, go back to Slack. And then if not, really it's saying like, okay, it's not urgent, it does need to be answered immediately. So then you think like, what's the time spent on it that needs to happen? And that's where you decide is a in-person conversation more effective at that point. Because again, I think once you get past urgent, once you get past immediate, you're a little past the efficiency question. You're more like, what's going to be the most effective means of this? And so if it's more effective to be in person than that, and if not, go to email. That is it on that. Sorry, that's it for that flow chart, not on the points I had. I still messed up. I was like, whoops. That's okay. That was like that one. It was like that one audition I was trying to encourage someone. I'm like, you made it. Like you made it through and you survived. Not you made it onto team because it was actually really bad. I was like, oh shoot!
Really
I want to use those words. I mess up on that sometimes, guys. So just some miscellaneous tips at the end. We want to try to get back to each other within 24 hours, but definitely no later than 48.
Please pay attention to this, listen to it, write it down.
That is direct from Melody
Yes.
Mandate.
Listen, short of you being near death or on a remote island, there are very few instances in which you cannot get back to someone in a timely manner. And I went through this with someone before about, I'll give you an example. I got a text last night from Dan. I was at a ministry partner cultivate dinner, so I didn't get back to Dan. I get home till 10. I'm not going to text Dan the morning at 10 o'clock, so I waited till this morning. Because he's my boss, I said, hey, sorry I didn't respond last night. This is what I was doing, and then I responded to him. That is, that falls into our culture of honor, especially leading upwards and responding to people. I got a text from Matt when he was in Ireland. I responded immediately because of what he was asking. There's a sense in which what I need you to think about is not is this urgent to me, but is this important and urgent to the person who's asking for the information? And that's how I need you to respond. So if you get a request from a campus worship leader and you're a network worship leader, you need to respond to that. Like, I don't want them to feel like they need to hunt you down because it's been 4 or 5, 6 days now. You're on vacation, whatever. But even a quick text of, hey, I'm away, why don't you know I saw your email, I'm going to get back to you. We just need to be really honoring to each other in the way that we respond to each other about things that come up, because someone's clearly working on it, someone clearly needs a response, and so you prioritizing that based on the fact that they need the info, not based on the fact that you're a Sonic and you just want to enjoy your milkshake, would be really just shows a place of honor to them. And it helps us get stuff done in an effective. If work is moving, and we just haven't heard back from you, and that's the only thing that's sitting in the undone pile, you're holding up a whole plan of action. And like when it came to Memorial Day weekend, when we were trying to move so many different people across campuses to get coverage, there were so many conversations. Well, I'm waiting to hear back from. With our volunteers, we have to take a place of, okay, with each other, we need to be on that. We need to be like, yep, I can get back to you. So I just want you to, again, I'm not saying that if your phone goes off in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep so I decided to text you. That's not going to happen. Have your phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm not saying you need to wake up and respond to me at 3:30 a.m. I'm saying I just want you to think about responding from a place of honor to the person who's requesting the information. And sometimes I'll have to get a follow-up email, hey, I want to make sure you got eyes on this, and I'm grateful for that because of the million different things. But on a regular basis, I just want you to be known for being a person who responds quickly. You don't want the reputation that people can't count on you to get a quick response. That just doesn't bode well for you across the organization. So just make sure you're paying attention to that.
Yeah, I would say like I've learned in my kind of like temperament and personality and stuff, I really want to make sure like I've thought through the answer, I have a good answer, and usually what holds me up is I kind of get bogged down or I don't have the time to really like think or process something, what I've learned is a quick response doesn't necessarily mean it's the full
Yes.
end result response, but it's just like a confirmation of like I got that. Sometimes if I'm like drowning in kids, like dinner time, stuff like that, and I get a text from like Becca asking a question, if I don't know the answer right then, I'll be like, hey, like can I get back to you like later tonight, or hey, can we talk first thing in the morning? Like that's still an immediate response, but it doesn't need to be something that's like figured out right away
Yeah.
every time. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of related to that, when you're gone for an extended amount of time, like vacation, out for a week or whatever, just try to make it clear and proactively communicate who do we get into contact with if we need to get a hold of you, so that we can respect your time away, like not try to get a hold of you. Because I think, I'm trying to think, like someone did that recently and it was just really helpful. Oh, Isaiah's doing it right now, like we're not hitting him up about production questions, because it's like, hey, can you,
Yeah,
I don't
he's
know.
delegated.
I don't know who you delegated, but
Luke.
he delegates some. There you
Yep.
go.
And he's
Well, I haven't had any
getting
questions or anything yet. And he is
If
getting
you
hosed
see
by
Luke
that.
and he's in perpetual state of sweating,
And then one last one that I thought of this morning too, that I think is key to point out, that's not on here, is while we figure this out and try to get to the ideal of what this outlines, make sure and like when you respond to someone, respond even if they use the wrong form of communication, respond to them in that same form of communication. So it's not like, I think I did that once to Morgan just to be funny, like we were texting and Slack at the same time or something and going back and forth, and it was just really funny to me. But if someone like sends you a Slack message and like, oh, that should have been an email, it's like you can still graciously respond and still engage in that, and then try to, I think this is primarily as I see it, this is a way for us when we initiate communication to try to do it in the most beneficial way. When you're responding, just respond in the manner that someone used.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna be like, hey, Melody, I'll reply via Slack tomorrow.
thank you.
I'm not gonna do
In the right channel.
it. You're right. In the correct channel.
I will respond in the
Yeah,
correct channel.
that is
Matthew.
And thank you for putting so much thought and effort into that. I think that adds so much value to our team and the way that we connect with each other. And again, I want to be respectful of your time with your family. You know, we're not running the country here. What we're doing though is very important, but we just, I think that this gives us some real good parameters and guidelines on what to do and how to do it. So thank you for that, and it was super easy to follow and clear, which I appreciated all the colors and the big words. It's very helpful for me, big size font words.
Yeah,
So,
not. I got you.
anyway, if you have follow-up questions about that, please feel free to connect with Matt in the appropriate channels. Like today he's here and you're here, and so that could be a match made in heaven, so please do that. Really quickly, I'm gonna give you guys kind of like a teaser. I'm working on something, it's gonna be called the Weekend Service template, and it's gonna have its own like move.se/weekend service template. And the reason I'm excited about it is because it's gonna give an overview of our weekend service and the what, the why, and the how for every component broken down. And I'm gonna go over this with the campus pastors this Thursday. We're in the initial stages of the project, so it's not completed, but there's just some coaching I can give them sooner rather than later. But this hopefully is going to be something that we can send to any campus anywhere. For a worship leader, for a new worship leader in Fresno, a new worship leader in Houston, you'll see basically our service broken down the way that we do it, and then there'll be a box for communion service, for family dedication service, and when you get to the how, here's the how for the call to action. Here's the how for, there'll be links that you can click on to watch people doing it the way that we want it to be done. So let's take welcome, for example. That's the first component. Worship is the first component of our service. So here's what, it's worship, here's why. I'm gonna give some reasons why we start our service out with worship. And then the how, click on the how and there'll be a video of Eddie playing his guitar and welcome to Sandals Church. I want you to stand to your feet as we sing this morning, as we sing to our great God, not this morning, we sing to our great God. So a person can kind of watch and go, oh, okay, that's how we do that. Then the next link will be the end of worship, and it's a ring out. So there's a worship leader praying over the ring out, and you can kind of watch what kind of energy and how brief over the ring out. And then maybe there's a link to it ended quietly. So here's how we pray over that. Then it'll be the welcome. One of the things that I'm going to be working with our campus pastors on is their growth as transitional communicators. So what's needed for all of our services is transitional communication. And a transitional communicator is leading someone from one element into the next. When they get up and they just talk about their thing, like worship didn't just happen, there's a disconnect. So it's like yesterday, worship was really incredible at Woodcrest. Kelly and Johnny co-led, it was beautiful. We get finished the first set. I love Scott Kesey, he's great. We just moved right into his thing. It was like this whole thing that you've been partaking for 20 minutes, I'm here to talk about. So really want to cast vision for our campus pastors that the only standalone element of our service every weekend is the message. It is the only moment, it is the only person who doesn't have to transition out of anything or into something else. They are just responsible for the message. The campus host or the campus pastor, they are responsible for transitioning in and outside of the elements of the service. And so that's going to require some coaching and some training, and frankly it's going to involve some asking off of some people who just can't be transitional communicators. But I'm going to go over this on Thursday with the campus pastors, and next Monday is going to be our first worship / production all team meeting. We're going to do these once a month. This is not an added meeting. It's taking place at this meeting. I'm not trying to add more meetings to your calendar, okay? Praise. And we'll go over this in here together next Monday so that we're getting buy-in across the departments as far as what we're doing. Luke and Stephanie are working on this project with me. We hope to have it done by the end of August, just in time for a Enneagram series so that everybody has access to this, everybody can watch it, everybody can see what we're supposed to be doing so that the weekend services continue to flow better. We have less, can I get a what? Like we're not, it's not a pep rally. We've had a lot of things said and done. And we want to streamline and bring together in one happy, appropriate vein. So that's what we're working on, so I'm excited about that. What I do appreciate hearing from you on your weekend worship evals is when hosting is done really well and when hosting struggles. That's beneficial for me now it was beneficial before, but it's even more beneficial for me now to know. Just having some information about hosting at Palm. Communion's coming up the first weekend of August. Fredo's going to be here. Rocky Stone's going to move over to Palm and host, which will be a really great experience for the people at Palm because Rocky is an excellent service host. So that information is very helpful. Even as I work with campus pastors, they're going to be responsible for hosting at their campuses. Network is going to be released to that. That's not scalable for Network to choose hosts for all the campuses. That's just not a scalable, sustainable practice as we get to 30, 40, 18 campuses. So they're going to have to own this piece of it, but this information is really going to help. And so you speaking into, hey, this went really great. I mean, I think Vivi does a really great job at Hunter Park most weekends when she hosts. And I've seen Rocky do a really great job. I've seen Fredo do a great job. Chris Reinhardt. There's just people that kind of stick out to me. And so we're going to use some of those people to capture the video for the project. But just any information like that you can put on your evals is really helpful to me as we kind of work through this. So I think that's it for today.